All right, Joanna, Jack, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much. I believe that Liz Mays will be conducting our presentation today. So Liz, take it away.
Thank you, Joanna. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining our February 2023 Client Care Program Back to Basics office hours. And today we're featuring the Immediate Assistant Program and Services for fiscal year 23-24. My name is Liz Mays, and I'm part of the National Level 1 and 2 Regional Response Program, commonly known as the DAP program. But before we get started, let's go ahead and take a look at our presenters for today's program. Our presenters won't be coming off camera today to preserve bandwidth, but we will share their photos with you. So joining me today, as I said, my name is Liz Mays, is Joanna King, the Regional Disaster Officer for Central Appalachia Region. She is our producer for today's presentation and will be helping me facilitate your questions throughout the presentation at the end. And also joining us, we have two DAT regional program leads, John Leeming with the Northern New England region and Mitch Siegel with the Central Appalachia region. Also joining us from the Client Care Program, we have Bonnie Norton, Recovery Program Lead in Massachusetts region, as well as Tom Margrave, Volunteer Program Lead for Disaster Spiritual Care. And rounding out our team from Client Care Program is our Senior Director of Client Care Programs, Jack Herman, JJ Moses with the Client Care Program, Casework and Recovery, Flo Hankin, volunteer partner for casework and recovery planning at headquarters, as well as Allison Wiebel, who's a manager with the Client Care Workforce Support. So just a few housekeeping reminders. This is a Microsoft webinar, and it's scheduled for 90 minutes. All the lines are muted and you're in listen-only mode. However, we will pause during the presentation to take your questions in the Q&A and also take questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have a question, we ask that you type in the Q&A screen your question. Please include your name and region so we can get to your question. And finally, like all our office hours presentations, we will be recording this presentation and posting it to the Immediate Assistance Program and Services Exchange page after this event. So I'm going to touch briefly on the agenda. We've done our welcome. Again, Jack Herman will be sharing with you an overview of the Client Care Program and as we move forward with many enhancements to the program. We'll follow that with our disaster client care programs and of particular interest, the new price guide and those updates. And finally, we'll talk about the implementation of this new price guide and how that will look for our teams in the field and how those will be implementing that as we move forward. And we'll round out with next steps and take any other questions that we may have. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Jack Herman.
Thanks so much, Liz. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are in the country today. Just want to thank you for being with us on this office hours to present some updates to our immediate financial assistance program. Let me put our program a little bit in context for those of you who may not be familiar with the Client Care Programs branch. The Client Care Programs branch is a programmatic branch within the National Headquarters Disaster Cycle Services within the Humanitarian Services Department of the Red Cross. And my program and the team is responsible for all of our client-facing direct services, if you will. And those are services like our disaster health services, mental health services, spiritual care, casework and recovery planning, disability integration program, and our virtual family assistance center. Many of the programs and services that you all carry out at the regional and division level. But the branch is responsible, first of all, to ensure that our Red Cross mission and our vision and our fundamental principles are reflected in all aspects of our client-facing programs and services, and specifically in our interactions with our clients. We're responsible for developing and sustaining an array of accessible client-centered programs and services that focus on addressing an individual's immediate disaster cause needs, and then also responsible for providing the direction, the oversight, and support to the Red Cross divisions, regions, and the workforce to ensure efficient and effective execution of the policies, standards, doctrine, training, and service delivery of all the immediate assistance programs and services. And then finally, we're also responsible to engage with our internal and external partners to inform and promote Red Cross immediate assistance programs and services. So what are the disaster client care programs? As I said, they're an array of accessible client-centered services that are provided in the early aftermath of a disaster that begin with the most vulnerable of our clients and promote three things. One is establishing that initial contact with a client in a compassionate and caring manner. Then creating a trusting environment to facilitate the assessment of a client's immediate disaster-caused impacts and needs, and then linking those clients to Red Cross and other community-based services and programs to meet those immediate needs and set them on their pathway to recovery. And so no matter where you are at the region, division level, if you are providing a client-facing service, these are really the three ways that we want to ensure that those services are provided. Let me step back a little as well and provide some additional context. Many of you know that we launched the RC Care system in December of 2020, and it hit its 2-year anniversary this past December. And for those first 2 years, much attention and focus was on ensuring that all of our workforce understood how to navigate the RC Care system, how to enter the casework into the system, and also what steps and buttons and boxes that needed to be checked in order to ensure that the client received immediate financial assistance as well as the other individual disaster care services. And so over those 2 years, as folks were, and you all were learning the system, what we were beginning to see is that most of the interactions with clients, you're sitting across the table from them, or you're working at a DAT scene with them, and you're going through the RC Care system, questions and triggers. And what we were seeing is a lot of that interaction with the client was very transactional. And what we want to do now is, now that we're more familiar with the system and people have taken the training and they have a lot of experience in navigating the system, we want to step back and look at and focus on now the experience with the client. And so that's why those first two bullets that you see on the screen now are very important, because that's really the first introduction a client has to the Red Cross. Whether you're rolling up on a DAT call or you're in a service delivery site during a disaster relief operation, we want to make sure that that initial contact with the client is conducted in a way that is compassionate and conveys your care for that client, while also creating that trusting environment so that the conversation and the discussion that you have with a client can facilitate your assessment of what their immediate disaster cause needs might be, so you can link them up with a range of Red Cross services that we offer, or those that our external partners offer. And so much of the next 12 to 16 months we'll begin to revisit some of the training that we're providing to our workforce around the provision of the client-facing services. We'll be looking at how to enhance the system in a way that helps facilitate your assessment of that client's immediate needs and linkage to our services and others that may be available in the community. So let me stop there for a moment and see if anybody has any questions regarding the program responsibilities for the client care program at National or the client-facing services that we are providing.
Okay, everybody, if you have questions, please place them in the Q&A. As of right now, Jack, I do not see any, but we do have some questions that were submitted. Would you like those?
Sure.
All right. So starting with a question from Garrig, what is the purpose of immediate assistance? As in, what outcomes are you looking for? And is it going to be different for a DAT call versus a DRO?
Thank you, Joanna. So let me first say, I don't think it's going to be different for a DAT call versus a DRO, though the timing to some extent, or how we define immediate, may be slightly tweaked between those two types of incidents. But let me first kind of in general, we talk about the immediate assistance that we provide to clients or the assistance we provide to clients in the immediate aftermath of disaster. So whether that's, again, getting called in the middle of the night to a fire or setting up our range of services on a disaster relief operation after a hurricane, our focus really is what is going to meet the client's immediate needs, things like food, shelter, clothing, access to health and mental health services, all of those things that we can imagine are disrupted in an individual's life in those early hours and days and weeks after a disaster. Typically, when we talk about immediate assistance, we may define that like 0 to 72 hours, 0 to 96 hours. That may change when we talk about large-scale disasters, but it is supposed to differentiate itself from our long-term recovery program that really looks, days, weeks, months, years down the road. We're trying to better understand and meet that client's immediate disaster cause needs.
Thank you, Jack. Along that line, now that the immediate assistance is increasing, will the DRO levels be reevaluated?
So DRO levels are really evaluated on how much money we anticipate and project we're going to spend as a result of carrying out all of the programs and services on a disaster relief operation, and to some extent the size and magnitude of the disaster. Those levels will not change. This is really for the immediate financial assistance program that we'll be talking about in a few minutes, and otherwise, what you'll see in this update will be the various household tiers and the monetary funding that's associated with those tiers and some other changes. And those will look the same whether you're providing those client care services on a DAT call or on a disaster relief operation.
Thank you so much, Jack. I don't have any other questions. Shall we continue on?
Sure.
Thanks, Joanna. And I wanted to introduce our next presenter. I left her off the top when we first introduced speakers, not intentional, but Sarah Joyce, the Client Care Program Manager for Individual Support Program, will be taking us through the Disaster Client Care Program. So I'll turn it over to Sarah. Thanks for joining us, Sarah.
Thank you, Liz. I really appreciate it. So now I'm going to take a few minutes and walk you through the client care programs that my team manages and talk a little bit about the services that you all provide in the field. This slide describes the non-financial services and also lists a little bit on the next slide about the financial services that are provided by our programs. Although we're talking about the client care program, it's important to note that most of our cases are opened in the RC care system under this program are opened by disaster action team members, or DAT. DAT responders open our cases on scene with our clients during local level 1 and level 2 responses. These teams first provide compassion, care, and comfort to our clients and often then provide financial assistance. During their interactions with clients, they also assess for other services such as disaster health services, disaster mental health services, or disaster spiritual care, and then offer referrals to the client as appropriate. They can also consult directly with disability integration if they require additional support and assistance to meet the needs of the clients. The services that the field provides under the client care program include casework and recovery planning, disaster health services, disaster mental health services, disaster spiritual care, disability integration, our virtual family assistance center, and then also we often form integrated care condolence teams. I'm going to spend a few minutes and go over each of these programs. So with the casework and recovery planning, it's provided by our recovery caseworkers in the field. It's a compassionate and professional service that identifies the needs of individuals and families and works with them to help overcome their roadblocks to recovery. It includes a provision of an array of services. It could be problem solving and advocacy, information and referrals, recovery planning, and supplemental financial assistance if qualified. And available under the individual disaster care umbrella, our health services, mental health, and spiritual care volunteers provide support. Disaster health volunteers assist clients with replacement of medication, durable medical equipment, consumable medical supplies, and provides hands-on care and physical assessment for clients in shelters. Disaster mental health volunteers respond to the emotional needs of Red Cross clients and work in the workforce impacted by disaster. Our disaster spiritual care volunteers help our clients draw on their own spiritual and religious resources through compassionate and respectful interactions in times of distress. And disability integration volunteers support the field to address the needs of individuals with access and functional needs, including those with disabilities during all phases of the disaster cycle. When a disaster-related fatality or serious injury occurs, an integrated care condolence team can conduct calls to reach out to families of deceased or seriously injured individuals, or when a family is waiting for an outcome of a missing loved one. Depending on the needs of the family, each team can include 2 of the 4 responders from any of the following activities: disaster spiritual care, disaster mental health, disaster health services, and casework and recovery planning. And finally, the Virtual Family Assistance Center is a compassionate care and support response strategy for the workforce and clients during chronic and long-term disasters. The Virtual Family Assistance Center supplements disaster operations by supporting recovery programs and reaching out to the workforce when needed. They also can implement special projects requiring innovative solutions to complex problems. During mass casualty events, transportation incidents, or pandemics, we can speak directly with volunteers and provide emotional support, and also help them locate any resources if needed. And now I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie Norton. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Excuse me. Now, Sarah shared the services we offer under our client program. So I'm going to share the financial component of some of these programs. I'm just going to recap some of the high level things and what is changing. So currently the first program we have is the 3-tiered model of immediate financial assistance, and that's based on the size of the family. And then we have the individual disaster care. They also have a financial component, and currently disaster health services and disaster mental health have the authority to issue financial assistance under those two categories. Recovery caseworkers, they can provide supplemental assistance, which is also a three-tiered financial model. And then if there's a disaster-related fatality, financial assistance can be provided under the ICCT program, and it's only disaster. Somebody under the IDC program can issue that financial assistance. Next slide. Oh, mass casualty incidents. I just to go over that a little bit, that hasn't changed. Next slide, please. Okay. Let me just hold on. I'm really struggling with my voice. So many of the financial services are staying the same. There are, however, two areas that will be changing. So the immediate assistance is going to a 4-tier model. And we'll see a little bit more of that on the next slide. And one of the good thing, another one of the good things that are happening in the client care program is now the disaster spiritual care team will have a financial component added. So they'll be able to talk about it in the slide coming up or a couple of slides down. But that's a really nice change for us. Supplemental assistance is not going to change. We're still going to do things the same way, 3-tiered model approach. Fatality assistance, mass casualty assistance is all going to stay the same. No changes there. And then one of the things that, just want to really touch lightly on is that, the RDO, which is a regional disaster officer exception process, that is not going to change. And it is a program that's available, but we really need to make sure that there's some compelling notes in the case in order for that to happen. I am going to turn it over now to go over the tiers to Mitch.
Actually, John Leeming will take this. Thank you,
I'm sorry,
Bonnie.
John.
Yep, Mitch is on deck. Appreciate it.
Hi
Go ahead,
there.
John.
Let's look at the specific price guide changes that are going into effect next week, March 1st. What we start off is noting that the client care program, which you've heard about here, continually monitors the effectiveness of all their programming. And they continually just try to choose whether they need to make adjustments. We're going to look today at some changes they are making. The decision to make these changes is really driven by two factors. One is at a leadership level of the Red Cross, there's been approved an additional investment into the client care program. Additional money is coming into the program. And at the same time, there's been ongoing feedback from you, people in the field, about the effectiveness of the program as it stands now, particularly the opportunities to maybe do better for mid-sized families. So let's focus on the first set of changes, which is the immediate assistance program. As previously noted, we've gone to 4 tiers. You can see now the 4 tiers on the screen. A household of 1 single person will be eligible for $350. Households of 2 to 4 be eligible for $640, and households of 5 to 7, $875. And then large households of 8 plus is $1,236. If you note, that's slightly different. It used to be 9 plus, now it's 8 plus, $1,236. So the big change is we're going to 4 tiers, and there's more money available for those mid-sized households going forward. Let's take a look at the next page. This lists all the other tiers, and it's been outlined. Most of them are not changing. Supplemental staying the same. Disaster mental health and disaster health services opportunities stay the same. Family-related assistance for fatality-related assistance staying the same, and the RDO exception process will stay the same, as does mass casualty. The new item on this page is the disaster spiritual care option, and we'll talk about those in the next slide after this. So these changes, the ones on the previous page and this page, are going to be affected into mid-2024. But at the same time, as I started talking about, we'll be continually assessing their effectiveness and their overall quality of the results. And then at times, the client care program may choose to make future assistance down the road. Just a reminder, all these changes go into effect in March 1st, 2023. Now I'm going to turn it over to Tom Margrave, who's going to give us a little more detail on the Disaster Spiritual Care Program.
Thank you, John. This is a wonderful innovation through the generosity of our donors. Now, as those workers with RC Care accounts, and we are encouraging all of our service associates to begin training on RC Care and get an account. As they respond to disasters and learn the situation of the family, if they discover that there are certain items that the family uses in their spiritual or religious practice, we can now give $50 per affected person in the household that suffered loss or damage to these items. And typical items might be religious books, the Holy Quran, the Holy Bible, Book of Mormon, CDs, rosaries, prayer beads, statues, for example, of the Lord Buddha, just a lot of things. Clearly, $50 will not buy a Muslim prayer mat, particularly if it's a prayer rug. But at least this shows the intention of the Red Cross and our donors to help make a difference. And because these funds can be transferred into their accounts, they can go ahead and order things while they're in the midst of recovery. This is not intended to be an automatic add-on. It must be documented in general terms in the case under disaster spiritual care. And that's about it, if there are any questions.
Okay, as noted on this slide, these assistance tier changes take effect on March 1st at 8 a.m. Eastern Time. If you have response in process at that time, at 8 a.m. Eastern Time, assistance levels will be based on when the event was created. So, for example, events created before 8 a.m. Eastern Time will have the old assistance tiers, even if a case is opened after 8 a.m. As now, RC Care calculates the amount of financial assistance based on the household size. There's no need for DAT responders to memorize the assistance tables. The changes are automatically incorporated into RC Care. And responders shouldn't tell the client what amount their financial assistance is going to be before RC Care calculates the amount. And keep in mind, we're looking to holistically help the client. So it's not a matter of dollars or transactional. We really want to help the client and be there for them. There's no changes with these changes in the assistance tiers. There's no changes in client eligibility standards or in our methods of providing the financial assistance to clients. For DAT responders, there's no new rules or procedures in these changes, except that you now can ask clients if they have any loss of spiritual or religious items and make a disaster spiritual care referral as part of our response.
Thank you, Mitch. I believe we're going to turn it over to Jack now for next steps.
Thanks so much. Okay, next slide. Great. So what's coming in the client care program? So as I shared earlier in the presentation, this updated price guide has now provided an opportunity for us to really rethink the definition of immediate assistance and the array of services that are provided under the client care program and our immediate financial assistance program. But what we're trying to do is move away from this transactional approach with our clients and just focusing on financial assistance. We understand that the financial assistance that we do provide to a client is very important to them, especially those who suffered a lot of losses in the context of the disaster. But we want that experience with the Red Cross to be more than just the amount of money we provide to that client. We want to be able to assess their full range of immediate disaster cause needs and be able to link them to all the programs and services that we have to offer in the Red Cross, as well as those that may be in their local community. And so over these coming months, my program will really be looking at itself and what it and where the client care program will be going in the future to better serve our clients. And we'll be looking at the purpose and intent of that program, what is meant by recovery, in an attempt to understand, again, how do we best meet a client's immediate disaster cause needs versus how we provide long-term recovery and meet the long-term needs of our clients. We don't anticipate any major overhauls to our program services and practices, but you may see slight changes here and there. Again, with that renewed effort to focus on the needs of the client and how we can improve the client experience in our interactions with them. And we could go to the next slide here, and I can talk about the resources and references that are available. And most of you are familiar with this. You've probably been on the Exchange page, so you'll see some updates to the client care programs, immediate assistance programs and services tool, our RDO exception job tool, and the RC Care toolkit. We'll also be introducing a number of knowledge articles, again, to help you facilitate through the RC Care system and make sure that we're providing all of our services and programs in a consistent manner over the next probably 6 to 12 to 18 months. You may be invited to be part of a focus group so that we can better understand the needs from the field in their attempts and your attempts to provide care and assistance to our clients. So I think that it's safe to say that over this next year to 18 months, we'll be working with you all in the field to identify ways that we can better assist our clients and provide for a more valuable Red Cross experience with them. We'll also be looking at additional ways that we can improve the RC Care system. I know many of you have shared your feedback and your comments about various challenges with the system, and we've been actually working on those over the last year or two since its rollout. There have been a number of enhancements that have occurred since the rollout, and we have a number more that are on the horizon. So, please bring to our attention those things that you encounter in the field that either work really well and provide for a good client experience, because we love to hear those stories, as well as those things that present challenges to you and your ability to meet with clients and address their immediate disaster cause needs. And I will turn it back over to the team.
Thank you, Jack. Our very own Liz Mays has put a wonderful question in. Liz comes to us from Eastern North Carolina, and this question is regarding spiritual care. What would be a best practice for DATs when discussing spiritual care needs, i.e. the spiritual care or religious items?
I'll take that. This is Tom Margrave, the program lead at National Headquarters for Spiritual Care. First of all, DATs will be attending to the basic needs of people. That famous Red Cross blanket or some water, making a difference. And as they go through doing the intake, just ask the question. In terms of damage, did you all have some religious or spiritual items that you know to have been damaged or destroyed by this event? And then pass that on to as part of the referral for disaster spiritual care. I think we're going to feel our way and learn what just really works. And if the DAT community talks about this and we get a pattern of outright success, that becomes the best practice.
Thank you, Thomas. And that's also a best practice, I would say, for recovery caseworkers and just asking the questions. All right, does anybody have any other questions? Please put them in the Q&A so that we can address them. As of right now, there aren't any questions, but there is an invitation to become part of the client care feedback work group. And Flo has asked if you will place your name and email address if you would like to be part of that work group to support feedback for the client care leadership. Really appreciate it. Jack, are there any past questions you'd like to answer until we receive some?
But we have taken the opportunity to refine the slide deck here a little bit based on some questions we received during the first office hours early last week. During that call, folks were wondering just about how the changeover would work from the 3 tiers to the 4 tiers when we start at 8 o'clock Eastern time on March 1st. And what you saw during the presentation is the system will automatically do the changeover. So you aren't going to have to memorize the financial authority amounts or do anything manual. It's based on when the event was created. So if if an event is created on the 28th, then those those cases open will then reflect the old price guide. But anything after 8 a.m. On March 1st will update to the new 4 tiers price guide that you saw reflected on the slide. I think other folks were just looking for some advance notice about, what are the changes that we might be seeing in the client care program. And over this last year, the client care team at national headquarters has really been focused on developing strategic plans for all of the client care services: mental health, health services, spiritual care, disability integration, and casework. And recovery, as well as our virtual family assistance center. And so now that those strategic plans have been written, they have been advised by the field, mostly for division advisors and regional leads for those respective programs, and they have an active strategic plan that is being worked on. Those plans and the activities associated with those plans are really going to focus over the next 12 to 18 months on what is the future of that program looking like, recognizing that the work of the Red Cross evolves in different ways in communities across the country. What we're trying to also do is establish, though, some consistency and continuity in the policies, practices, and guidance for the provision of those services. And so much of our attention, over these months, next months and year, will really be focusing on educating the regions and the divisions about the range of programs and services, the policies and guidance around those services, in hopes that we can establish some consistency in applying those services to our clients across the country. We're also focused, as you heard me say earlier, on the client experience and the worker experience as well. So in my team, we're not only focused on how can we make the client experience better, but how can we make the worker on the DRO or during a debt call, how can we make their experience better by improving the RC care system, by ensuring that our workforce has the training and understands how to provide the direct services. So there'll be a number of things that we look at over this next year to try to improve those experiences, and hope that through your feedback, you will find that we're going to be very focused on the provision of those services, whether that's at the client level or the worker level.
Thank you, Jack. Some previous questions that have come through. One was, do I need to wait until March 1st to begin training to receive an RC Care account? The answer to that is no. The processes have not changed, only the financial assistance tiers and the addition of spiritual care. So please continue forward with your training in EDGE. And I do not see any additional questions in the chat. So is there anything else you guys would like to cover today? All right, Liz, would you like to close us out this evening?
I am happy to, Joanna. Thank you so much. Again, thank you everyone for your time and attention to today's presentation. Again, on the exchange, you will find the resource for all this information that we've shared today, the new price guide, and also the recording. So with that, again, thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.
Okay, folks, nice job. Any questions? Anything come up that we need to change for the next one?
Jack, I'm just gonna update the speaker's notes in the for my team section,
Okay,
but I'll get those over to Liz and Flo.
great.
Jack, would you like to pick questions that you want to be asked if there's none in the chat? Or are we doing okay just kind of randomly grabbing them?
Yeah. I mean, I think we're doing okay. Random. Leonard, are there any other questions that you can think of that we want to plant?
I don't think so. I think we're covering it all. And, I think we're on the right side of this to where we're being more proactive and more informative. We're providing more information than we're getting questions, and I think that's the right side of things.
Right.
And so I don't want to say that we're making a bigger deal out of this because this is a big deal, but maybe it is just, straightforward enough to where it's not generating a whole lot of questions.
Yeah.
Already
All right.
I just want to make sure the ones that I'm kind of picking out of thin air are okay with you.
Yeah, no, they're fine with me, Joanna, and John, any thoughts on your end?
No, I mean, I think we're just doing a good job. It's pretty straightforward when you do it.
Yeah, I don't think it's too complicated here, right? I think that probably when people have more experience using the 4-tiered system and applying the disaster spiritual care financial authority, maybe we'll see more questions coming into us at some point there. And otherwise, it is pretty self-explanatory.
I agree, Jack, and I think most folks, when we're talking about the direction of the client care program, they're thinking, okay, that's future state. I don't know that they really understand. I'm just talking about some of our field level, me either, totally, to be honest. But yeah, so I don't know that that's generating a lot of questions for that reason, because it's a high level view. But as to your point, I think, yeah, once we start talking about some of these things and groups and things, you'll be getting more questions. Because it is straightforward, right?
Yeah. All right. Well,
Wonderful.
we don't need to make it any harder than it needs to be.
All right. Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank
Have a good
you.
afternoon.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Take care.
Thank you.